I know that there is massive opportunity to change the value of work in people's lives. And yes, AI is kind of the lever or the instigator. And what keeps me up is trying to assess the best way to convince leaders that they have options and there are ways to be intentional and proactive about.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. We're bringing the best and the brightest in the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward, folks. My guest today is Josh Newman, the global head of people and strategy experience at WPP. And Josh doesn't just predict the future of work, he's actively building it. As a future of work strategist, creative storyteller, and organizational change provocateur at WPP, the world's largest marketing and advertising company, he leads bold experiments in workforce design, AI adoption, and unlocking human potential at scale. With a background that blends strategy, storytelling, and systems thinking, he has helped Fortune 100 giants like Walmart, Amex, and PepsiCo rethink how they attract, engage, and grow talent. He helped launch Walmart's employee value prop, build proprietary workforce intelligence tools that rival top consulting firms, and transform HR from a support function into a commercial growth lever. We have a lot to get into. Let's get to it. Josh Newman, welcome to the podcast.
Look at that AI summary.
So good.
I'd say like 98% accurate.
All right, hold on. Here's the finishing one. I cut this off. And known for turning complex change into narratives and inspire action, Josh brings the brain of a strategist, a copywriter's pen, and a founder's instincts. If you're looking for someone who sits at the intersection of people strategy and business impact, Josh is already there drawing the map.
What was the prompt input?
I can't tell you that. That's proprietary.
Let's get into it.
And we're going to get into AI a lot. We're going to get into it. I'm really good at it. Like I found something I'm good at. I like doing it. And there's an art to AI prompting. And no basic bitch shit here, right? We just jump in and we craft it, we hone it, we try to get it where we need it to be. AI is all about the inputs. We're going to get to that and a lot more, but let's get to it. My dude Josh here has a fascinating background. Whenever I'm talking to a people person, how does Josh get into people? And I start with this question because it's really interesting too. If you don't mind me asking, what did your parents do for a living? What do they do for a living?
Ooh.
Yeah, because I think it tells
That's
a lot.
Good question.
It tells a lot.
What did my parents do for a living? My father's recently retired. He had his own company for about 30 years. They did data warehousing consulting. I really never knew what that meant. So I had friends who joked he invented the internet. I brought that idea to him and he said, well, it's not entirely not true. And I left it at that.
Whoa. A little
he did
dark
show
and mysterious. Was it government? Was it government work at all?
No,
No?
It wasn't government. Maybe
Right.
there was some early day computer stuff that he was involved with that contributed to some
DARPA.
Additional reason. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Like 10 steps away. He did once show me some technology that he built before or at the very beginning he launched his company. That was an adaptation. It was kind of a play on Windows before Windows was a thing.
It's called Doors.
And he happened to call it Doorways. And it was and it was a front end operating system, like a graphical GUI, graphical user interface. That was
Do you talk AI? Do you talk AI shop with him?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, he knows. He likes to play around. He's been spending a lot of time painting in retirement, and he gets a lot of conceptual ideas by honing his prompting with whatever he uses, ChatGPT or Midjourney or something like that.
Well, we're gonna get to that. And what about your mom?
My mom's a physical therapist, a pediatric physical therapist, and runs TOT practice in New Jersey. She does like really Mother Teresa type things, like good people things. I was with her a few weekends ago, and she ran into someone she seemed to know, and I kind of kept walking. And when she caught back up, I was like, "Oh, who was that?" She's like, "Oh, I helped that person's child when he was 8. learn to walk. And she told me, we haven't seen each other in 10 years. She just told me that he got his driver's
Oh,
license,
wow.
and it wouldn't be without me teaching him how to walk to get the driver's license. Um, yeah,
Nice work, mom.
yeah, and we do what we do in this corporate world. So
So my AI generated prompt went through your bio, and everyone could take a look on LinkedIn there. But what was your calling? Like, how did you fall into the people world of people practicing?
I mean, my career story starts back in college. I studied journalism, and in particular, I studied journalism at a time when uh, social media was on the rise. And in partnership with a teacher of mine, a professor of mine, we sort of, along with a group of 5 or 6 of us, co-created a curriculum dedicated to new media journalism. So there was a print journalism track, there was a television journalism track, but we created sort of this new media track for the School of Communications at the University of Miami. And from there, so what journalism did with for me, I didn't have that sort of fire to be a journalist inside of me, but it taught me the skill of curiosity,
Hmm.
which some people naturally have, others can learn it. It taught me how to ask questions and to poke for truths and facts. And, when I graduated school, I connected with this person who was at a consulting firm building a new media and creative practice within human capital consulting. At at the time it was called Aon Consulting. And from there, I learned what human capital meant. I learned what consulting meant. I learned what employee benefits were, total rewards, and all of that good
Total.
stuff. Total
I
rewards,
always
employee engagement.
I always feel like total
Yeah,
reward should be like a tag on my keychain that I'm getting at like a supermarket or something, right? Like total rewards, like
total rewards.
total rewards brought to you by Stop and Shop. It's fascinating. Like a lot we fall into this line of work, but did you feel it was a calling at any point?
No, I don't, and that's just my personality. I work with plenty of people who parts of the HR world, parts of the talent world, very much are a calling. I find it utterly fascinating, especially now, maybe more so than ever. In college, I lived with studio music and jazz students, so they were studying music as a profession,
Mm.
and as a basically a science and an art as well, of course. And the ones of that crew of friends who really succeeded, music was in their blood. Like, they could not
It's
exist
in
on
their
this planet
DNA.
doing anything
Yep.
else.
Hmm.
And I was jealous of that. I was like the sole friend in that crew who I was the journalism major.
You
I
were the
was not a
groupie. You were
musician.
the groupie.
I was the
Yeah.
groupie. And now looking back, I see some of those friends who have made it, but it's a tortured artist kind of vibe, right? Like they know they can't do anything else with their lives, even if they're successful. There is a bit of that torture there, and I used to feel jealous of it. Now I almost feel an unburdening of that of that
Right.
lack of singular vision and drive.
The piece that I'm taking away is curiosity. I think it's one of the most fascinating, incredible, strongest traits that somebody could have. As a friend, I want friends that are curious in many different levels. I find mutual curiosity leads to exploration in our friendship and activities and things that we do, always yearning to try and do something new. And especially when it comes to recruiting, from a recruiter standpoint, I think it's one of the strongest traits of a recruiter is natural curiosity.
Mm,
You want to find out how, when, where, why this person got there. And then you want to find out, Theo, how did they figure it out? How did they get to where they're going? And whenever I'm doing a screening, whatever the role it is, the core that I'm trying to get to is, yes, I know your background. Obviously, I'm connected to you because I sourced you and you look like you on paper, you have it. But tell me what you did. Tell me what you did. How did you get there? How did you figure it out? And doing almost 500 episodes of the show, and I talk to senior executives like yourself, that is the number one thing that they look for in a candidate. You could extrapolate that,
mm,
and however way it's asked, answered, at the end of the day, they want to know how you got there and how you did that. So I think that leaves a lot to people curiosity, always looking for improvement. How do we make things better? How do we continue to improve? And that's really kind of the gist of it. And I hear we've had a number of conversations offline too. The curiosity of technology. and I want to jump into that. Listen, we could talk people all day. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but I want to get to some good stuff here around technology. When was the first, when did you start really effing around with the tech from a people practice standpoint? Maybe it was a personal level, and then how did that bleed into your day-to-day job? Specifically around AI and kind of
Specifically around
yeah,
AI.
let's get into it. Let's talk shop here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my instinct was to go back to my first job, where we were sort of this SWAT team of 6 people being asked to deliver on, talent related comms or employee engagement services that the broader human capital communications practice could not deliver on. So we were specifically trying to leverage the latest technology to inspire and really sell employee engagement services to our clients, all the way back to, if you remember Second Life. Remember that
I
thing?
haven't heard,
I
I
I,
haven't heard
I
that
don't
in a hot
remember.
minute.
I don't think we ever did anything with that, but we
It's
were
too early.
partnering. We were partnering with some Second Life employees, like leaders, to try and package up. But I don't think anyone really wanted to do benefits fairs in Second Life.
It was a little
That was kind of
early.
a
It was a little
that was kind of
early.
a miss.
Maybe COVID, it would have been good.
Um,
Yep.
and we were putting together mobile apps for Blackberries, because many of our clients, insurance companies, beverage companies, travel companies, all their employees were on Blackberries. So we were leveraging QR
Mm.
codes to, before they died and came back, to
Oh,
send people to Blackberry mobile sites. That was so. Anyway, AI.
yeah. Wait, pause out. Let's just give a
Yeah.
shit.
Okay. We can go
Let's
back
pour
to
one
that.
out for let's pour one out for our homies over at BlackBerry over there that got eaten up by the iPhone. I love the BlackBerry. Like from a user interface standpoint, I loved everything about the BlackBerry. It was a
Mm,
solid. It was solid, right? It was like a status symbol. I remember the BlackBerry. Remember BBM, BlackBerry Messenger,
mm,
right? It was a precursor, and then they just got blown out. iPhone came
yeah.
and just stomped on their faces.
And now I don't know if you've done any uh, looking into some of these dumb phones, even the ones that cost, $500, $1,000. There's one that specifically is designed on the back of the BlackBerry design, so it's got that small keyboard above above a screen, and yeah,
I mean,
that's a tangent.
I still say the Motorola StarTech was the best phone ever created. I actually have mine. I have it. I should bring it to the office. I should put it on the shelf. I mean, that flip phone, that turtle flip
You
phone was
should put that in a case.
it's amazing. It's a work of art. I almost want to get it for my dad and get him away from the iPhone. It was fun.
That might be smart
My,
for all of
my
us.
parents were in last weekend for my daughter's bat mitzvah, and I pick up my dad's phone to look.
Congrats.
It was fun. I pick up my dad's phone, and the font was like 800 on there, and I was like, wow. And then
Was the first app open Facebook?
I don't even remember, but I started to look at.
Okay.
I also did that. I shut down. His phone was running slow. Everything was open. I shut down from it, and I started to look how he organized. There was nothing there. There was
Mm,
lack of organization, and I started to judge hard.
mm.
That's a bit. It's a
Yeah, I
slippery.
mean,
So,
live and let
live and
live.
let live. All right, so back. We'll get the show back on track here now. I want to talk specifically AI in the world of recruiting, and from a leadership perspective, I think it's interesting to start with how do you champion the technology to maybe senior level folks who might be hesitant to it? How do you really push forward the benefits of it, and at the same time ensuring brand integrity and candidate experience integrity, and just keeping WPP in the right light? Like how do you start to frame that up?
You want me to talk theoretically, or do you want me to talk in practice at
Mix,
WPP? Here is
yeah,
what we're doing, X,
mix it
Y, and
up.
Z.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I certainly work with some leaders who are hesitant, who aren't sure where to start, and sort of we have the challenge of the paradox of choice are the words I'm
Mm.
searching for when it comes to what models to use, what's better for this. We have an incredible platform internally built, which sometimes raises red flags, but it is a best, at least in industry, called WPP Open, which for the majority of employees not delivering, media plans or uh, thousands of iterations of a specific production There are all of the tools out there that you can get separately online, right? So we have access to all the latest LLM GPT models, both from a video perspective, image creation, general
And
chat,
that's
and
just a
so
huge
forth.
benefit of a tremendous corporation having the ability,
Totally.
right? The financial ability and the resources.
Yeah, and look, part of a future facing employee value proposition has to be that you come work for an organization, you come work here, and we will show you how to use this, right? Because you want to be literate in the latest things that your parents happen to be talking
Right.
about, maybe even your grandparents. And we can do that for you, and we are for our people. Our trainings are pervasive throughout the organization, and the usage of our internal platform, as well as what we know about how people are using external uh, LLMs and generative AI technologies through the roof, as you might imagine, in our industry.
Right. So you're able to leverage the positivity of it from a candidate attraction standpoint, saying we have the latest and greatest, from an employee engagement perspective of we have the latest and greatest, we're going to empower it and make it a destination of why people want to come work at WPP. And once they're there, giving them the tools to embrace it, use it, and utilize it in their everyday work. That is valuable and attractive. I know that from speaking to candidates. I'm sure you have the data to back that up, that they want the latest and greatest, especially in the world of media and tech. Right? Like, how do you I
Absolutely.
mean, that's what they're looking for, and you want candidates and employees who know how to use it, and who know how to use it well, but not as a crutch, right? Use it as a tool, but not as a crutch.
Yeah, and look, we have the conversation all of the time around how to balance efficiency and effectiveness. I just want to get back to your question on
Please.
leaders
Yes,
who are
let's get
who
back to
are
that. Thank you.
skeptical, and this is kind of an anecdote that I use often, but the way I would sort of blanket, here's the beginning, right? Open up WPP, open up Chat GPT, whatever the thing you're using, the generative AI tool you're using, open it up and pretend you have the smartest freaking intern you've ever worked with at your fingertips. And I don't think that's a unique take, but it is a take that allows people who are skeptical or questioning the value to go and explore. And within that, there are three things to focus on: there's search, there's research, and there's content
Mhm.
creation. All things that you would go send a PhD level intern to go and do. Of course, you, as an expert in whatever you're an expert in, have to check the work. You have to figure out, are the connection points there? Is this intern bullshitting and making things up? Maybe a little bit here and there, but it's going to get you beyond the blank sheet. And there's immediate value there. Now, when it comes to, I'll link it back to where we ended before I came back, question around efficiency and effectiveness. Not all roles, not all tools, not all use cases are about one or the other, right? I find myself personally using variety of LLMs, including our internal tools. And what it does for me is it sends me in directions I wouldn't have been sent in.
Mhm.
And then I continue pushing and exploring those paths. Now that's potentially at its best improved effectiveness, right? I'm going deeper, I'm exploring, I'm pushing the curiosity beyond where,
Right.
my busy life and brain would naturally take it. That's an effectiveness play. Now, there is certainly an efficiency play to be gained, and for that, we talk about specific tasks and roles, as well as the specific technology modules within our internal platforms that can unlock that capacity, not so we can reduce headcount, not solely so we can manage margin, so that people can spend more time focusing on their higher value work, of which is very specific to mostly roles, but
Mhm.
even more so to individuals.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, first and foremost, at the highest level, I mean, executives need to be embracing it. If you're going to move it forward, you need to be a champion of it. Now we can niche down a little bit and talk about using it in the people practice. Using it, let's start with, you mentioned job descriptions, right? You mentioned AI is rewriting every job description. What what's wrong with the way job descriptions are written right now? Why do we need to use AI? How is it being used better?
I mean, I think
Like,
there's two sides
right,
to
like
this.
just for example, like an account executive role probably hasn't changed much in the last 15 years.
But if you're at an organization the size of ours, where roles are extremely intersectional and more collaborative than ever before, the old role description probably doesn't apply. And same with how technology is impacting workflows or affecting and evolving
Yep.
workflows. Um, I think that so you can look at this from a few sides. You can look at it from the organizational side and you can look at it from the candidate side. So from the organizational side, you can scale the best of what's out there at the click of a button, right? You need to make sure that your job descriptions are aligned on certain things, maybe highlight things like skills that it didn't in the past. Traditional historic job descriptions really didn't talk about that at scale. And then from the candidate perspective, I think you can get more honest and transparent about what the work really is versus a laundry list of potential tasks and
Soft
interactions
skills.
that someone's going to have.
Well, it's interesting because I've been even before the big rush here. I've been a big champion of turning job descriptions into job advertisements. Right? How do I turn this laundry list into something more forward facing and enticing? Especially because I recruit for in the creative space. Right? How do I attract the creative with a more creative ad? How do I put a little bit more of a brand spin on? So I've been using it to take the job ads, the job descriptions, and with certain prompts, turn them into job ads. And how do I make it more creative? How do I put in inputs about who I'm targeting? What's going to attract them? Who's doing this on your team? And is it a new roles that have been created, or are you working with? I mean, every organization is different. Sometimes the hiring managers are crafting job descriptions. Sometimes it's a recruiter, someone in rec ops or HRBP. Like, is this a new role, new skills? How is that working internally? Like, who's doing this?
I mean, at the end of the day, we're not necessarily talking about new skills. We're talking about potentially new tools to do the same type of work that, in our case, I would call it TA or TA ops would do. Typically, how it works now, we're fairly fragmented from an operational perspective. So I sit at WPP, which is the sort of HQ or the center. We support across the entire network. We have agencies that sit within WPP. Those agencies each run their own P&L. They have their own HR teams and so forth. So there is some differentiation across. But generally speaking, TA ops works with the hiring manager to craft the job description based on historic job descriptions as well as any nuance that needs to exist.
So it's their
Um,
responsibility. Yeah.
yeah, it's their responsibility. Where we have some, call it centralization or common ways of working, we do have certain boilerplates or formats that our TA agency people are encouraged to leverage and apply across. And we're getting more and more consistent because not necessarily from an employee perspective, but from a client perspective, clients are asking for the best of what WPP has to offer. And so there is a commonality that we should be leveraging from an employee value proposition and an employer brand perspective.
It's fascinating, and thank you for sharing that insight because now we switch sides and we're coming at it from the candidate perspective. Number one, in theory, a better written job description should attract better candidates. In theory, right? If candidates are doing it the right way, but now we're living in the world with so many tools, and rightfully so, that candidates are using to apply to mass apply and everything. And there's almost a thought to it. The more specific I could be in a job description, then hopefully the tools that the candidates are using to match would be better. In theory, that's not always the
I
case.
mean, look, I think right now we're in a bit of a 1.1 state versus a 2.0 of doing anything
Hmm.
from a job description, job ad, TA perspective. I think what 2.0 looks like is something. Now I'm painting a bit of almost like, I don't know, matrixy
Hmm.
RoboCop kind of world.
Right.
But if I were to log into LinkedIn and look at an ad, if the ad thought I was a good candidate, right, it's got the percentage match. If the ad thought I was a good candidate based on some non-existent backend or not yet available backend, it might adjust the job ad to then further target me. Now, if you think about the work that we do as a media and advertising company, that's what we do, right? I
Should be
talked
best
to a
in class.
friend. Yeah, I talked to a friend about, being hungry and, like, oh, I'm gonna go grab a Snickers. 2 seconds later, I will get a Snickers ad on a podcast, right?
Uh,
It's absolutely insane how quick that happened.
we're
Why should it not be the same from a recruiting standpoint.
100%. And we're getting there. We're getting there. I mean, I genuinely feel that there's been we're still in the middle of the gold rush movement when it comes to HR and TA tech. We've talked about this offline. I have a front row seat. I'm literally seeing all the tech that's out there. I'm trying it out there. A lot of it is the same back end, and they're still trying to figure out the nuances of it. And the candidates are doing the same thing as well too, right? They're figuring out the tools to use. So we're going through this learning process, and there's going to be a lot of ambiguity. There's going to be a lot of misses, right? There's going to be a lot of it, and you need to kind of sift through what's working and not. And now you think about how that applies to the current modern day recruiter. Are we creating more volume, more work, or are we finding more efficiencies with these tools? Are we overwhelming these teams with too many tools at their disposal to deal with this volume? I think it's a volume problem versus quality. What,
To your point, I think
it,
we're in this curve. We're in this change curve where there is not one best way. There are many new tools, and we have to get to one best way, which may look different for different organizations. It may even look different for different capability sets within an organization.
So I want to talk a little bit about workplace and workforce design. And we spoke about a little bit about workforce design. For anyone out there who's either new to the podcast or isn't familiar with that term workforce design, what does that mean? Do you mind breaking it down for us?
Yeah, I think about work architecture as another term that we've been using quite a bit. So when we talk about work architecture, at the very core of it is understanding how work gets done. What are the steps to get to deliverables, outcomes that the people and technology that you employ, the resources that you employ, take to get to that outcome and deliverable. So that's work architecture. And I think for anyone who is an HR business partner out there, job number one is understanding the work architecture of the people, the leaders, the business that you support. I think workforce strategy, right? That's what you asked, workforce strategy.
Workforce design and
Workforce
strategy.
design.
One and the same.
Basically one and the same. I think workforce design is if you have that foundation of work architecture and understanding the steps and levers it takes to get to the end results you're trying to get to, then you really have to understand the skills and capabilities that are required to get there, both from a technological perspective as well as a human or a people perspective.
So pausing on that for a second. I mean, WPP is a tremendous organization. How many general folks are under your umbrella that you have to manage workforce design for?
So WPP is about 106,000 employees across 100, maybe 10 countries, covering $14 billion in revenue.
Pretty big to say the least.
Yeah, it's a huge organization, and the way it works is it's almost like Russian nesting dolls. So we have core agencies that all generally the large ones have their own.
They're called
P&L.
matryoshkas for Russians speaking out there. Right, there we go.
Yes, they are, and I don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Matryoshka.
Matryoshka. So multiple P&Ls within WPP, and the management of those people generally happens on the day-to-day level through their agencies. In fact, really, I'd say up until a few years ago, there would be a significant portion of people at WPP who did not know they worked for WPP.
It's crazy
that has changed more and more, especially over the past 5 or 6 years. But we're still extremely intentional about where we take part in our employees' experiences at that sort of network-wide level.
And how do you even think about that at a micro and macro level? How do you think about it, from that 30,000-foot view, and then really customizing it for each agency with their specific niches and specific, I hate to use the word culture, but right, like each agency is a little bit different and it's different business models. You applying like kind of overarching frameworks that could be used and scaled differently? What's the approach?
Absolutely, yeah. So there is the macro and then the micro. 90 some odd % of our people sit within an agency. Therefore, the experiences and cultures that they exist within should absolutely be tailored to their day-to-day lives. That doesn't mean that everything needs to be completely willy-nilly. Everyone goes off on their own and designs the experiences however they want. So we do use some frameworks. One that I've used across multiple organizations is an employee experience map. We used it at Walmart when I was over there. When I was at Group M for a year, which is now called WPP Media, we applied it there. They're still using that. And we're using it in bits and pieces at WPP in order to support the design of employee experience. And there are 6 stages of the employee journey. We use them in the first person to put the employee at the center. And those 6 stages are find me, hire me, welcome me, engage me, grow me, and wish me well.
Seems pretty straightforward on the surface.
I mean, it is if you break it down. It is if you break it down enough, right? So the idea behind those 6 stages, or however an organization defines those, is to understand 2 things. What is the employee-centric outcome you're trying to drive within that stage of the journey? And what is the business-centric outcome? The welcome me stage or onboarding feels like
so critical.
It's absolutely critical.
Mission critical.
It
is.
You can find all sorts of research and reports on the value of day one, first 30 days. But what employees want and what the business wants are 2 different things.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because it all comes down to managing expectations. And I want to interject for a second here.
Yeah.
The candidate and new employee also has to take some responsibility and agency for themselves to ensure that they're being set up for success as much as the agency's responsibility, making sure that you're asking the right questions, making sure that you understand during the interview process, am I being thrown into a fire and that's the expectation, or am I going to have a long enough on-ramp properly and say, this is what I'm looking forward to and want to do, or this is not what I want to do and I could choose before I accept an offer. Mm-hmm. And then that way aligning from I've seen so many times when candidates come in, and it's not always necessarily bait and switch. It's just more of a changing of the business and the priorities from the time that they start their candidate to become an employee versus that start date, right?
Absolutely. And I will say, there's definitely mutual responsibility in that sort of find me, hire me phase. Once you hire an employee, if there's any time for an organization to be paternalistic, it's in the beginning.
100%.
Right? Give people the reason to go back home to their partner, parent, whoever, and say, you know what, hell yeah, I made the right decision. And then your job is to figure out how to maintain that over their career, but certainly in that day one. But what an employer wants on day one, or at least within that welcome stage, is get this person as productive as possible, as quick as possible.
Ramp them up.
Get them time to productivity.
Hey everybody, Adam here from the Podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by the team at Fountain. Fountain is your full-service frontline workforce management platform. I have to tell you, Fountain's offerings are some of the most robust I've seen for any product in the space. They offer full solutions for hiring, managing, and retention. They are truly a one-stop shop focused on the frontline workforce. They also create informative content using their data. For example, they analyze a bunch of data from their fast food chains and created a trend report you could download now on their website. They also have a new ebook out called Frontline Voices. There's a lot to dive into. Certainly check it out. And you could learn more at fountain.com, linked in the show notes. Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about maybe a recent workforce design project that surprised you by not working. Let's talk about it. You don't have to go into great detail. We don't want to name and shame anybody, but maybe you do. Maybe you had a hypothesis. Maybe the team had a hypothesis, but when it was put into practice, some reason it didn't work. And what were those reasons? What were the learnings?
I'll talk about an experience from another organization. So I feel like I have a bit more
nice to freedom. There you go. Yeah. We'll take that.
So, but it's something
present company accepted. Yeah.
It's something that, I know a ton of people are working on everywhere, including work we're doing here. So at a previous organization, we were implementing Workday. It was a massive implementation from a tech perspective, from a change management perspective, from a work design perspective. The consultant and the implementation partner that we were using brought in reams and reams of people. just masses of people sitting on the floor with us. There was, 10 or 15 people dedicated to change management. And they were working on a presentation that they were going to give to the CHRO. And they wanted to run it by me before they went to her. And the crux of this presentation was about the change in narrative to everything will be easier. Life will be simpler. You can now do it all.
Seems like they already sold it in already.
The flag that went up, right, is when you put in a technology product, especially like Workday, it's a self-service tool. You're not making anybody's life easier except for the HR business partners who are overworked most likely because they're moving from overwork and then they're going to move to more strategic talent work. But for every single person and manager who's going to touch that tool, they're going to have to do stuff that they never had to do before. Moving an employee, promoting an employee, what have you. So that was one sort of experience design that, saw was a bit of a mess up.
Did it need more time? Did it need more onboarding? What was the fix?
It needed more people who understood the culture of the organization. And I experienced this over and over and over again. When you go to a conference where you and I were at Transform this past year, you go to these big conferences and there's roomfuls of vendors.
Conference room full, huge conference, use cement conference, ballrooms, multiple ballrooms.
And you end up either chatting with some or they reach out to you afterwards. 90% of vendors that are selling into organizations don't spend any time, not forget about enough time, but any time understanding the actual business, understanding the types of things that business leaders, not HR people, some HR people, but the business leaders, what the problems that they're facing. Because if you can speak in that language, you're going to make it easier for the HR person you're selling to buy your thing and convince their boss, their stakeholders, that it's right to solve some of the cultural nuance of that organization.
So what does a truly future-ready organization feel like to its people? What are the signals employees should look for to know that their company is doing it right? From the employee standpoint?
I think employees need to feel that their managers care about them and their development. And that does mean putting people into opportunities that stretch them. That means maybe at the most actualized level, caring about them on a human level,
personal level.
It doesn't mean that you need to be friends with everyone you work for, but it certainly means you need to care about their growth, even if it is the opposite of altruistic, which is for the benefit of the work. But understanding culture and understanding how to make culture work for the outputs that you're trying to drive is absolutely critical in a future-proofed organization. And I mean, intentionally kind of stepping on my toe here, like I'm not talking about AI, right? Because AI right now is all of everyone's conversation, and it is utterly critical to figure out the from to here.
Of course.
But eventually it will just be. And if you're thinking about future-proofing, it's all about the human capabilities, because when everyone has the same LLMs and GPTs accessible through their fingertips, it's only the talent that's going to differentiate.
And how interesting is it that that's where we're wrapping around to, right? Where the human differentiator is going to be, the key mover in this machine world. I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to shift gears and talk about something I've heard for so long, how HR doesn't have a seat at the revenue table. I think it's an interesting one where they're not equating revenue to people to revenue. Why do you think HR in so many companies, we're not talking about WPP specifically here, but in so many companies from your perch and what you're seeing out there, HR still struggles to claim a seat at the revenue table? And how do we fix that?
I mean, the why, I don't want to purport to have a broad brushstroke answer, but I know that the answer, interestingly enough, does have to do with AI. Because in this moment, leaders, I am seeing and hearing from colleagues that leaders are asking talent-related questions that talent people have always wanted their leaders to ask, and they never have. So there's this tension and this pressure that is building, and the valve is going to be strategic talent solutions, one way or another. How you build capability, how you understand work architecture and the design of experiences to optimize putting the right human resources, technological resources to driving outcomes. And if we're at the seat of that table, we're talking about revenue.
That's mission critical. So let me ask you this: if you were made when you were made chief people officer at maybe a traditional legacy company or wherever, what's the first thing you're going to do day one to shake it up?
Return to office. No.
Ooh, hot take. Well, let me ask you that for a minute.
Yeah, let's talk about
it. General hot take on return to office.
You want my hot take?
Yeah, no, I'll tell you mine. You don't want to hear mine. I say mine all the time. What's yours? You're the guest, bro.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to figure out.
They want to hear from you.
How guarded I should be.
Well, let's move it to a hypothetical. I'll back you off of this one for a second here. You have a 2,500 person agency in New York, right? It's a major agency in New York. COVID, everyone had to go remote. Wasn't remote first beforehand. Now we're a year plus post COVID return. Where do you stand as a head people person there? What's your initiative?
Let's talk about return to office in that hypothetical.
Sure.
If I'm a leader at the same table as the CFO, the CTO, the CEO, the conversation about investment in technology, I would be talking about taking 1% of that and targeting programs like rotational programs, mentorship programs that have historically been the bread and butter of how talent grows up in this industry in particular, but really across many industries. Because again, back to the concept of future proofing, the only way we develop incredible talent over time, this is not a 1 quarter play, a 2 quarter play, even a 2-year play. This is thinking about how over a decade we continue and ensure succession and development of high potential and high performing talent. And it is going to be by people learning from the best. Everyone learns differently and everyone has their own needs. Absolutely. So, a policy, I think, feels heavy handed in a hypothetical situation that you just described.
Okay. Let me spin it a little bit. I grew up in ad land my first 15 years before I pivoted into recruiting. If I couldn't even, do you remember like summer Fridays were like the thing, right? That was the thing you lived for, as a summer Friday. I could say with confidence that if I didn't have that in-person office mentorship, being able to learn from senior account folks, how they commanded a room, how they pitched, how they led, within, interdepartment meetings there. I can't even imagine that in this world of doing that remotely, and how much knowledge transfer and mentorship transfer is lost. I mean, are you seeing it firsthand at WPP? Is there a decline? I don't want to put you on the spot here, but are we seeing lowered metrics of folks moving up into leadership positions quicker based on mentorship potentially?
We have not made any of those correlations. I think that is really interesting, deep analytics work that we should probably do.
It's very qualitative. Yeah, it's deeper. It's deeper than a one-off answer. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. So let's back that up. I'll back up there.
I think it's a fascinating question.
But what are your, I just look back I've lived on the digital and analog side of mentorship, and I've seen it. And I also don't think we're raising good leaders in this remote space, because you're a slave to the Slack, and you're being Pavlov's dog, that every bing and ding that I have to go respond to, so it looks like I'm busy versus actually learning.
So what I try and proverbially anyway meditate on is, what if there is a different way, right? Like, what if, let's say, Gen Z, or my kids are Gen Alpha, right? Like that, the next generation, they're going to have such wildly different expectations of the workplace. Now, what if the workplace does need to completely be flipped upside down in order to make it work for them, right? I don't know specifically what that would mean, but just like think about AI's impact on education and what writing a paper means. There's going to have to be a different way to not even not even assess knowledge from an education perspective, but to encourage learning and growth. You you know, something needs to change, and maybe it eventually will. So the question is figuring out who is
What
at the
is it?
forefront, and what that functionally looks like, and then how to make certain first small steps and then large steps to get there.
But would you agree that there has to be some level of in-person human contact and relationship, or can it all be done virtually? And I don't think we're meant to work in silos. I mean, I'm talking very specific about the ad creative agency world where there's a lot of collaboration, and you and I both know, not even the creative side, the executive side too. There's something about being in that room. There's something about that energy that breeds ideas.
I don't think you are going to, the way structurally large agencies are set up, have the same experiences for young people, for executives, for clients as the past, if everything, like you said, is over Slack. That being said, I'll be a bit balanced, because there are agencies out there that are remote only, that are remote
Remote first.
first,
One of my
and
clients is remote
they're
first, and they're excelling.
they're making money. They're
Yeah.
they're making it work. So it's not possible. Uh, it takes a lot more intent and intentionality and proactivity. So where there is not enough time, capacity, resource to put that intentional design forward, that forward future facing design, yeah, I think you do have to rely on some of the traditional levers to build capability internally. Does that mean everyone's got to be in the office all the
No.
time? Probably not.
No, and I think there's pros to that too, and we could have hours long conversation debating the pros and cons of in office, hybrid, what that actually means based on
This part of the
companies.
conversation is going to make Fishbowl explode.
Oh, I will. I had a good run on Fishbowl, but I want to talk about something near and dear to our hearts too. Let's just level set here. My kids' daughter just turned 13. Son is turning 7. Yourself, how old are the kids?
My daughter's 5, and my son is about to be 3 in a month.
All right, so I'm a little ahead of you here, and I've seen some pretty cool things about everything from I've had my kids on the podcast multiple times, and for me that's a time capsule. We do an annual show every New Year's, Christmas, holiday time, and bring
I
them on
listened to
here,
that one.
and it's just a lot of fun. But it also being a parent has, oh my God, I mean it's changed everything for me, and not to get too emotional here, but I always say that moment that your first child is born, that's the moment when life becomes about something greater than you, bigger than you, where you're not the most important thing in the world anymore. For most of us, that moment my daughter was born, I was number 2. I was actually number 3 at that point. But when I shifted to work a little bit, and I think about how I've learned to lead with more care and empathy, and just having a different lens when I speak to candidates and when I speak to clients, a little bit more empathy and understanding, but infusing what you do, being a parent for almost 5 years at this point, right? Like, how has becoming a parent influenced the way you lead teams and workplace systems? How's that affected you?
Well, the most sort of selfish or self-centered response is that it has completely changed my own style of working, which I know then has an impact on those I work with. So, for example, there's very little work I can do before the kids are out of the house, and very little work I can do from the time we pick them up from school to the time they go to bed. But those hours after they go to bed, those are my most prized and productive hours when they need to be. And I know that those hours between, let's say, I don't know, 8 and midnight, if I'm cranking, if I'm in that flow, I know it's not a collaborative time, but it is productive time.
It's focused.
So the time I spend, more in my workday is much more dedicated to spending time with my team, spending time with my peers, spending time with the massive matrix of stakeholders across all
Can
the
only
project
imagine.
work. So it's it's totally changed the way I work. I think it also changes the why I work in a way, right?
How
Like,
so?
I think it's valuable to have personal ambition, but that can get tired, and there's always, for myself anyway, there's there's just seasons of wants and needs, and those come and go, and
For
they're
sure.
rarely consistent. But having a family is consistent.
Yeah.
So
Could say
yeah,
that. They're always
yeah,
around. Those little rugrats are always around there. And listen, we know how
they're
unfiltered
always
kids are.
around.
They're always around. They're unfiltered. The kids are unfiltered there. What do you have like, oh shit, I can't believe they just said that. I didn't even think about that. Something they said just kind of off the cuff, obviously, that you're like, wait a minute. Somehow I'm correlating this to work. I didn't even think about this. Maybe you're watching them play, interact with their friends. Was there something recently that kind of caught your eye? And for me, I'm going to give you a second to think about this while I do it. It's watching my daughter interact on text message with her friends. They have a complete alien language. I swear to God, dude, the language it's short form mixed with like acronyms mixed, and I'm like, is it cryptic for a reason so I can't look over her shoulder and see what she's writing? And they're at the age now they're talking about boys and you know what I mean? They're starting to get there a little bit, but when we watch these like 3 to 5 year olds, it's pure fun, pure play. But like when you just sit there and like kind of fold your arms and look over, what really inspires you in a professional way?
I mean,
I never
my
asked this question
my
before.
my daughter comes out with shit all the time that I'm like, hey, are you 5 or are you 15? Because this is, I don't know where the language, where you got this language. And then my wife and I, we kind of sit back and reflect, and we're like, oh my god, they're just copying us. So
Yeah,
one example, this is not like very philosophical, but
doesn't need to be.
I was putting my daughter to bed, and she was just didn't want to go to bed. One of those nights
One of
for a
those.
5-year-old, and
Hey,
I'm like, dude,
go to bed.
you gotta go to bed. Like, mommy and daddy gotta go work. We got to do more work. We got to clean up. We got to make her lunch tomorrow. Like, we got stuff to do. And she's like, Dad, I don't know. I can just, there's no way I can go to bed. I'm just so stressed out. I'm
About
like,
what?
I'm
Please,
like,
girl, tell me your problems.
do you know what that means? What do you mean you're stressed out? I'm like, oh, you absolutely must hear us talk about that all the time.
But it's interesting though. We could talk about this for a moment here. Like stress is real with kids, and you have to recognize it, and not put it off. And they stress out about different things that we do. My daughter stresses out about her hair and her outfits sometimes because that's what's important. No, because that's what's important to her
Sometimes, yeah.
every
Sometimes
day.
it would be
By
nice.
sometimes I mean every day, because that's what's important to her. And and
Yeah.
and I'm glazing over the fact that she crushes it with school and tests and everything. But that's important to her. And I'll walk by her room like, come on, you're late for school. You're gonna miss the bus. I can't drive you today. Yada yada. But that's important to her because that's her brand.
Yeah.
And I
Totally.
remember we had a conversation about personal brand. I can't believe I had a personal brand conversation with my daughter, but she picks it up from me, and she's been by my side here for doing this show for 7 years since the first year, and she understands what that means and how like
Hmm.
how you show up in public. It's crazy stuff there. So let's shift gears and let's bring it home here. Josh, what's keeping you up at night these days, work wise? Not the kids, work wise. What's
What's
spinning
keeping
around
me up at
in
night?
that finally coiffed dome you got there?
Um, I think there is a lot of questions. So, first of all, we'll have a new CEO in come January, so that adds
Shakes it up a bit.
shakes things up a bit. What's keeping me up? I mean, I here's what I know. I know that there is massive opportunity to change the value of work in people's lives. And yes, AI is kind of the lever or the instigator. And what keeps me up is trying to assess the best way to convince leaders that they have options, and there are ways to be intentional and proactive about work architecture, work design, and using technology to unlock people's capacity, free up people's time. And then, leaders can do what they will with that freed up capacity.
Hmm.
Yes, people can go take a lunch. I hope to see as we are more proactive with this type of work,
Right.
we see burnout reduce in certain pockets where we A/B test, and that is absolutely something we measure. So there are ways to leverage this, and trying to figure out the best first decision or the best first step, or the best next step is something I'm constantly thinking about.
And I love that too. How do we use quantifiable data to predict potential burnout, which will look out for our employees' mental health and well-being, look out for the business, look out for future business too, and prevent, attrition. Most people leave companies because they're overworked and underpaid. Let's call it what it is. So if we could preemptively use data to say, oh my God, we're over maxing Josh on his. I mean, listen, any good leader in the agency world, any billable type, it would be law firm, whatever. You could look at billable hours and see where people's time is. Are they overworking and spread it out? And that's a business decision. All right, back on track here. Let's finish strong here, Josh. What is the single greatest piece of career advice that you've ever received that you pay forward?
Hmm.
Now we finished strong here, man.
Yeah, seriously. I have an answer to that, but I just want to say one more thing that keeps me up
Sure.
at night, because
Please.
you got my mind going.
Yeah, let's get back into it.
I recently heard a friend of mine who has just launched a consultancy. He said something so succinctly that I've been thinking about for a long time. And so it's not necessarily an original thought, but it's something that
Please pass it
I
forward.
want to just put out there. I think the organization that is able to actualize reskilling and upskilling as the most important benefit within an employee value proposition is the organization that's going to win. And like that to me says it all. Bonuses are great, and they work leading up to payday. The day after a bonus is paid out, resignations
PTO
skyrocket.
Day. Yeah,
PTO at best.
resignation.
Yeah, you get
check his cash. Peace out.
Later. So it is not a consistent driver of employee engagement and positive employee experience, but the ability to stay future-proofed is absolutely critical.
Think about everyone out there listening. Think about that. If you're a company and you're looking at your EVP, right, your employer value prop, and you put it prominent that I'm going to long form this here, even in a current state of continuous tech and AI innovation, we're not scared here at Acme XYZ company. We invest X% back into each employee's upskilling, future-proofing them, electives and stuff that we have from a curriculum to make sure. Like I'd be like, holy shit, you know what? That's a company I want to work at because they're not going to kick me out in 2 years when my job becomes redundant from AI. They're going to start training me early. That's retention. That's employer branding right there. And if you put your money where your mouth is as a company, I can't even fathom the effectiveness where as long as you're not just talking shit, right? Like you're really putting your money where your mouth is. I want everyone out there who runs an organization, no matter how big or how small, to think about what Josh and I just talked about. Start small. Take 1% of whatever budget that is and put it into in-house, outsource type programs and skills on the company time and dime. Hey, listen, we're going to carve out every Thursday afternoon for 2 hours. You could do this, right? I'm making it up here. But think about that if you're looking to stay from a retention perspective or talent attraction. This is key. And I'm really glad you brought that up. Thank you.
And I will say, just a plug for my employer,
Sure.
WPP, we are doing a ton around upskilling. We can do a better job in telling the story internally and to candidates from an employee value proposition. But we've trained tens of thousands of people on how to use our new tools, hundreds of thousands of hours of training. But yeah.
I mean, think about it if we're going to go deep here for a minute, and I don't care if we run long here, it's my show. Talk about like the role of a project manager within an agency or a creative type who's scared by these tools coming out there. There's so many automated AI tools for creative that are jumping down the throat. Yes, we still obviously need the human touch in there, but clients are saying, hey, why can't we do this on our own? We could, have our in-house marketing team handle copywriting. Why do we have to outsource our creative to WPP? No. There's ways to teach employees how to pitch it, present it, really bring up the human side, like have real professionals in there to teach them. I mean, that's what an agency does. So let's get back on track and finish strong here. Single greatest piece of career advice you ever received that you pay forward.
A mentor, current CHRO, of not my current CHRO, someone I've worked with, she's a mentor of mine. She once told me, I think she was a bit flippant about it, but I stuck with me. She once said, find the seams. And what she meant by that was, if you keep running up against the same problems, take a step aside, take a step back, and find somewhere else to push. Because why put your effort somewhere where you're not getting reciprocal value? So she was basically articulating an effort versus impact, chart, but find the seams was just a succinct way. And it resonates with me all the time. I think about it all the time.
I think that's sage advice for a lot of people out there. And it kind of rolls up to, insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result, right? You're getting the same there. And I think that applies to your career too. If something's not working out, a relationship's not working out, figure it out. Like don't stop trying to repeat the same thing. And it's hard when you're in the moment. It's hard when you're in the corporate environment, but you need to step up, elevate, take that time to clear your head and figure out a path forward. So Josh,
and it doesn't mean necessarily do something else or change your goal. It could just mean change the path to get to your goal.
Change the direction. Look for that alternate route forward. So we have a pathway forward, so to speak. All right. Last but not least here, anyone takes a look at your LinkedIn and sees this incredible career progression. We see where it's going, or hopefully where it's going, but it could also make a right or a left turn. Who knows what's going to come your way? Who knows what's going to come your way after this podcast comes out and who listens to it? Who knows? Maybe you'll go into a whole new industry. Who knows? But
maybe I'll become a lawyer.
Maybe not do that. Or a dog walker. You never want to, whatever. If it pays well, listen, it seems relatively stress-free. But we see a progression of on paper, textbook success here. But in reality, when you look at your life as a whole, Josh, how do you define success?
Nowhere in my, in the life reel that plays in my head, would I ever think about my life as textbook success. Sorry,
we're looking at linear progression based on a resume here. If we're tying this into, we're seeing progression.
Steve Jobs, Stanford commencement.
But all right. So let's flip it around here a little bit.
What was the core question?
The original question is, how do you define success?
Fine,
let's stick with it. How do you define success at this stage of your life and career?
I think what I consistently strive for, and as a goal, which is not a static goal, but a dynamic goal, is contentment, which I've gotten into some philosophical debates with some friends of mine and some relatives who believe contentment is, kind of a lame thing to strive for. But I think it's really hard to be content over a period of time. I think happiness is nice, and happiness is something to experience, but I think it's a peak emotion, and it's not something that is sustainable for long periods of time. Long moments, sure, but that sort of middle platitude of contentment is something I am constantly seeking. How do I ensure I'm never falling or spending as little as time as possible falling below that emotional line into, I don't know, what's one thing below contentment? Disappointment, vague disappointment. Like I'd rather barely satisfied. No, I'd rather spend most of my time entirely pleased and some of my time really stoked.
Love it. Josh Newman, this has been a good one. We could certainly continue this. Hopefully we pick this up at a event show this fall on the road. I'll be back at a RefFest. Where are you at next? What's on the road trip itinerary?
Road trip summer plans. My wife is from Ireland. We will be there for a few weeks in August.
Nice. Love
out on the farm.
Whoa. Well, that's part 2 about Josh on the farm. We'll get to that one in a minute here. Everyone, you can connect with Josh on LinkedIn. Where else do you engage? Where do you like to be an active participant in this world?
Which world? The social media world? Very little.
All the worlds.
I must say. So
workplace world.
LinkedIn is a great place. Then tend to move on to WhatsApp and text.
All right, everyone connect with Josh on LinkedIn, see where it goes. And everyone listening out there, thank you for joining us on the podcast. If this show meant something to you, leave a review, rating. It goes a long way. Follow us on all the social media channels. Check out thepodcast.com. check out us on Instagram at NHP Talent. I'm trying to beef up YouTube. YouTube is such a beast. YouTube.com/the podcast. Got some great videos out there. We'll get this one up. See if you can spot the differences in the show if we put the video up. And remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.